we are honored to have with us Jamie Lerner, the CEO of Quantum. Jamie, welcome and congrats on your success.
Roy, hey, thanks for having me. I look forward to speaking to you. And, I think, Quantum and CineSys have probably worked together for multiple decades. And it's just great to be on with you guys, talk to you guys. And I think CineSys has been one of our top 3 partners for almost 20 years. So it's just great to be here.
Well, it's our pleasure. Well, Jamie, to start, please tell us a bit about yourself and your initiatives at Quantum since joining in 2018.
Sure. When I joined Quantum about 6 years ago, we really put a lot of thought into what's storage going to look like in 10 to 20 years. And while Quantum was known for, being a very trusted vendor, we were known for some technologies that I would say were somewhat dated. Tape products, some backup targets, a very high-speed file system but very niche focused on media and entertainment. And we started thinking about, well, what is media and entertainment going to need 10 years from now, 20 years from now? What is it going to look like? And we just knew it was going to look a lot different. And really, our core initiatives have been building a brand new storage system. And I don't even want to call it a file system because it isn't, but putting the locus of our innovation energy into ActiveScale and Myriad to build, the most advanced systems for handling unstructured data, both in the creation of entertainment assets, but also in the creation of AI and machine learning workloads. And, those products just look like nothing we've ever built before. And really, I'm just so excited about this next chapter for Quantum with just an entirely new storage line of products.
Yeah, exactly. That leads perfectly into my next question. Myriad seems to me to be a remarkable and courageous solution. Please, could you describe the benefits of your Myriad solution and how you managed to come to develop this groundbreaking platform?
Well, I think you hit a couple things there. Myriad is a totally revolutionary approach to storing unstructured data. It is not like an evolutionary add-on to StoreNext. It's not like, oh, it's a more scalable NetApp. It's not a next generation Isilon. I mean, it is just a total break from the way data has been stored previously. And we can get into a bit of that. And that is hard because it doesn't look like a file system. It doesn't look like the way a storage system looks on your network. But for the people who get through that, they realize that this is where storage is going. And the way we've used to do things on layer 2 networks with proprietary ways of doing failover and load balancing, like that's just gone. And, courageous is the right word because this is a harder path. It's easier to do something like a Weka where you go, hey, it's a incremental improvement on parallel file systems, or VAST that, hey, it's a slightly improved NetApp with a little more scale. This is just a complete break with previous architectures. And I'm just convinced that it's the way to go. And I think the more people that get their hands on it and get their arms around putting it on their network, they're pretty blown away by what this looks like.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And with Jamie, with the rise of AI, organizations need to build data lakes for data inferencing and model training. How is ActiveScale helping organizations do that?
Yeah.
And how does it work in conjunction with Myriad to meet the needs of the AI pipeline?
This is where I think Gartner just got it all wrong. And I've just lost like total respect, for Gartner and where they're trying to tell people to go. And they're trying to say, hey, all file and object is going to ram into one big thing. And I don't believe you can architecturally build the world's fastest place for data and the world's safest and most economic place for data, all in one giant architecture, one God box of storage. I just think that's just wrong. And this idea where Gartner's saying, oh, it's got to all be converged into one giant thing, I don't buy it. And so what we've gone and done is said, look, we have a system called Myriad, and this is the world's fastest place for data. And that is where you work on data extreme high speed. Now we have it elegantly integrated using things like, more modern constructs like Iceberg, where you can perform SQL across your file system. You can begin to look at your file system like a database, which is really what it is, and move data to ActiveScale. Now, what ActiveScale, yes, it's an S3 object store, but it does something that's pretty incredible in that it can operate as all flash, it can operate as flash and disk, or it can operate as flash, disk, and tape simultaneously. And you can say, when I move my data to my data lake, how much of my data lake do I want to be flash, how much disk, how much tape? And then I can spread that across multiple locations. So I could have one location be all flash, another location be all tape, so they can be different sizes, yet it's doing multi-geo data protection in its very core of its architecture, and erasure coding the data across flash, disk, and tape. So it allows you to say, when I have to store unstructured data for decades, in some cases, like our movie maker customers, centuries, I have a way of doing that. And I don't think an all-flash, high-speed analytic tier is where you should be storing movie assets for centuries. It just doesn't make sense to me. And that's why we have these two different systems. They integrate and operate as one, but architecturally, the engineering for extraordinary high speed and the engineering for cheap, deep, long data protection is different. It's sort of like if you went to a car maker and said, hey, I need a Formula One performing car, but it also needs to carry the load of an 18-wheeler. Well, you're just going to get both are going to be crappy. It's sort of like I don't know, people who love El Caminos, but it's like it's a crappy car and it's a crappy pickup. It's kind of like you're trying to do too much at once. So, we just look at it totally different than Gartner. I think they got it wrong.
Yeah, so true, so true. Hey, you wrote an article for Forbes called "The Data Differentiator: Unlocking the Power of Unstructured Data to Fuel AI." I thought the article was excellent. You also said in Forbes, if an enterprise wants competitive differentiation, it must leverage its own unique data, not just what's readily available online. That rings so true.
Oh,
Could you provide
absolutely.
could you provide
Absolutely.
an overview of your beliefs on this subject and how it drives how quantum comes to market with solutions?
Well, we kind of come at it maybe from a different angle, which is, I mean, the internet, the data that's on the internet is the same to everyone, and it's pretty hard to come to conclusions on that data that others can't come to. So what makes Coca-Cola unique, what makes Ford Motor Company unique, what makes Taiwan Semiconductor unique, it's their data. And the first thing is, if you didn't keep your data, well, there's nothing you can ever do with it. So, when we work with companies, it's like job number one, keep every single byte of your data, right? And then a lot of people are like, oh, wow, that's expensive, that's difficult. How do I even understand it? So we work with companies to figure out, okay, well, the cost of keeping data on flash is different than disk, is different than tape. Now, tape isn't really that redeeming as it's not that architecturally elegant, but damn it, cellophane is cheap. You're never going to store data cheaper than a piece of cellophane with some chemicals sprayed on it. So if that's what you have to do to get to affordability, well, then fine. It may not be elegant, but hey, it lets you keep your data. So job number one, keep all your data. Then job number two is, it's not any good if you can't find it. So begin to catalog it whether you're using something like a product like CatDV that helps you build catalogs, or something more like Iceberg that allows you to begin to do SQL against your data so you can find it, build partition tables in and around your files. That's like job number 2. And then once you've kept all your data, and it's your unique data, and you understand it and you can curate it to a certain degree, organize it, find it, now you're ready to start saying, hey, can we come to some conclusions from this data? Can we find themes? Can we find repetitive failures, repetitive success scenarios? It's, when everyone talks AI is probably the wrong word. It's just using a machine to do some very basic learnings like, hey, I can determine patterns. Like, these are the patterns that lead to unhappy customers. These are the patterns that lead to happy customers. It's not like an artificial human. Like, I think AI people kind of jump too far. It's just, hey, let's just use the machines to be able to just do millions or billions of scenarios to find some basic patterns that'll help us in business.
Yeah. Wonderful. Now, Jamie, I coach my 9-year-old son's soccer team.
Right on.
When
I'm a nut about sports. I'm an
I
absolute
do.
sports maniac.
Now, when I tell the kids on the team that it's okay to make mistakes, just try your best and learn from your mistakes, they play so much better. Is
Oh,
there
for
a
sure.
parallel to this in creating company culture?
Well, I'll give you my personal experience. I became a professional software engineer when I was about 21, but I had been coding since I was about 13. But I coded professionally, and I really had huge gaps in my skill set compared to the 30, 35-year-old programmers I was working with. And I was coding mostly C and C++, and I was scared to death, right? Because I was like, if my code that I deliver, I mean, this is professional software that's being used in a product that's being used by tens of thousands of people. Oh my gosh, if I break this product, if I screw it up, if my stuff just doesn't work, right? It's completely petrified. And what saved me was learning the concept of iteration. And my mentor sat with me and said, Jamie, code's cheap. Just throw it all out. It's cheap. Just rewrite it. You could probably retype the whole source code to Microsoft Word in 3 or 4 days. Like, and what I started doing is, just like you said, failing over and over and over. And every time I failed, I learned a little more. And the first pieces of code I delivered, I probably rewrote 60, 70 times because I did them wrong that many times. But it took that many mistakes to get through the learning. And so what I've done my whole career is go really fast, because you're going to fail a ton of times before you figure it out. So you might as well just get on with it. So I always like to start projects really quickly. I like to go really quickly because I know I'm going to get it wrong so many times before we eventually learn enough. And especially if you're doing something that no one's ever done before, there's no way you can do it right. Or certainly something you've never done before. So I love iterating. I just love the freedom of iteration. Like, I'm just going to do it, blow it up, throw it out, do it again, and eventually arrive at, whatever the right answer is. But I love iteration, and I think you're absolutely right in that it kind of it liberates the mind. Like, I don't have to be right. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be even good. I just got to get started. But if you never get started because you're worried about making mistakes, you're definitely going to fail.
Yeah. Absolutely. Man, I'm glad I asked you that question. Thank you. Um, Jamie, some people say leaders should not get into the weeds. I'm sure you've heard that. However, I enjoyed hearing you speak about the importance of getting into the details. How do you feel about the importance of
Yeah, I
details?
mean, look, nobody wants like a senior executive showing up and getting into all their stuff and second guessing them and why'd you do it this way, and man, this isn't the way I would have done it, and no one no one wants that. But at the same time, nobody wants to put a product out where you're like, oh my gosh, we didn't, this looks rough and this is rough and we didn't polish this and why didn't we look at this? And so I do think it's really important to get into the details, not because, and not setting the tone that you want to second guess anyone, look over their shoulder, grade their homework. What you want to do is set the tone. Details matter. Obsessing over details matters. What our GUI looks like matters. What our documentation looks like. And so, for example, I sit on a call every week and we go over every customer complaint we received. Each one painstakingly, where someone said, man, your documentation was hard to understand, or when you shipped me your product, you shipped me the wrong stuff, or you shipped me the right stuff, but your labels were wrong, or the box got crushed in the 18-wheeler. Why didn't you build a stronger box? And those things may sound like painstaking minutia, but that's where the customer experience goes down. Like, hey, the box showed up crushed. Well, that's no good. Like, hey, we better strengthen up that box or talk to the shipper. Hey, we shipped the wrong stuff. Why'd we do that? Let's make sure we don't do that again. Or, hey, we have this user interface that just doesn't work or is buggy. And we just obsess over that, mainly not because I'm looking over anyone's shoulder. It's that I'm representing the experience of the customer. I'm obsessing over the details because our customers obsess over the details. And I'm not doing this because I'm reviewing your work. I'm doing it because I'm the voice of the customer. Right. And we just in your culture, you just have to have the voice of the customer there every day. I think we can do a way better job at that still. But it's just important to me that we're making changes, we're responding all the time based on what our customers are telling us. I think that's why we're probably one of the only storage companies that's been around for 45 years, is just the obsession over customers. And our customers let us have it sometimes, right? I mean, they just like, why'd you do this and why'd you do that? And I'll tell you this. Every technology company in the world has bugs. We all have bugs. We all have performance problems. We all have documentation that's a little bit old. We all make mistakes. But we differentiate around one thing: how we respond. Everyone has bugs. Then the question is, how does your company respond? And I think how companies respond to customer issues, customer problems, since I've been here, we've just obsessed over that. And we make mistakes, but I can tell you this: we always make it right. If I have to buy hardware, if I have to take a system back and credit someone, if I have to, whatever it requires. But we're never going to say, hey, it just didn't work out. Yeah. We're going to make it right one way or another every time, regardless of how difficult or costly, or, hey, it'd be cheaper let's just punt on this customer, let them go to the competition, it'll be cheaper. Like we just don't look at it. We don't bring out the cost accountants when we're thinking about customer satisfaction.
Yeah, we've seen that as well. And Jamie, one of my favorite books is The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. He describes, sounds like, it looked like you're familiar with it, of course, but he describes how large companies that are hesitant to make their own products obsolete will often fail. What do you think about making your current products obsolete by developing and introducing new innovative solutions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just a natural thing that occurs. They're gonna become old and obsolete anyway. Yeah. And there's gonna be a new product that knocks them off their pedestal. So you may as well be the guy knocking your product off the pedestal than letting Dell do it to you, or IBM, or someone else knock you off. So, plus, it's not really hard to do that, at least in our culture, because our engineers are so curious or so innovative. They're so on to the next thing. And they're so intellectually curious that they don't get caught up in, oh, the thing I'm doing might obsolete an older product. Well, it might, but the innovation just takes you there. It just takes you there. And we don't in any way sit with our engineers and try and manipulate that. Like, oh, let's not do innovation in this area because it could upset, some of our installed base. It's just like, if innovation has taken us there, if tech has taken us there, then we're just going where the innovation takes us. And it's going to happen anyway. Someone else is going to do it anyway. So we just got to go there and manage our business as best as we can. But when companies manipulate like product overlap or manipulate like, hey, we got a new product that's ready to ship, but we're going to hide it for 2 years so we can, cash cow the old one. I mean, companies do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I may be too much of just a tech purist, but I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Again, couldn't agree more. Jamie, would you agree that in today's world, just about every company now is a media company?
Well, I'll share with you kind of like a weird observation. Quantum, CineSys, we've been working with movie, television, and sports companies for a long time. Right. And it's kind of a lunatic fringe, right? It's kind of a weird group. These movie makers who aren't considered to be high tech people have way more data than any enterprise, right? Movies are just bigger than any, and movies and television, they're just enormous. And the data is all unstructured. They're large files. I mean, these are people who are been dealing with very complex workflows with very large amounts of data, often this kind of niche doing movies, television, and sports. Now I'm showing up at these AI companies, and the lead technicians of most of the most advanced AI companies that I'm going to usually come out of the studios. And I always ask them, well, how'd you end up here? And they like, I was the only guy that they interviewed that had worked with hundreds of petabytes or thousands of petabytes of data.
Sure.
And I've dealt with workflows, and I've dealt with moving it, and I've dealt with archiving it. And like the guys in IT, they're like, hey, I worked on, 600 terabytes of data. And that's a huge honking Oracle database with 600 terabytes of data. And the movie guys are like, dude, we shoot 500-600 terabytes a day. It's just a different world. So it's really fascinating watching how, saying everyone's a media company, that these the true media companies that I call true media, which are movie, television, sports, and a certain amount fashion photography. The big houses, Gucci, Balenciaga, Nike, Skechers. I mean, they have enormous amounts of photography and video data too.
Sure.
That their IT teams and media teams, particularly the post-production teams, are the most well-suited for doing the world's most advanced AI workloads when they're dealing with X-rays, MRIs, CAT scans, genomic data, microscopy. I'm watching these media and entertainment guys run the biggest microscope investigation shops in the world, because when they use a microscope, they film a video. Very high fidelity videos, 200 frames per second, maybe only 2 or 3 seconds long. But all of a sudden, these microscope companies have the same size repository as Disney. And the guys over there running those microscope repositories came out of the Disneys, Warner Brothers, Paramount, etc. So it's fascinating how that this lunatic fringe of movie making that we've been in is really becoming the main line for how you analyze unstructured data.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. All right, Jamie, lastly, is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to add?
I'll add this. I've been increasingly becoming a great friend to Brett Angle, who's just an amazing guy.
Mhm.
And, you know, as I've gotten to know him and spend more time with him, I watched him do something that just blew my mind. We were at NAB, and, you know, Brent's a pretty mild-mannered guy, low ego. And he said, Jamie, would you like to come and hear my band play tonight? And I said, sure, I'll come. And I went over to see him. And these are like top studio musicians, I mean, Brent got on stage and blew everyone away. I mean, his singing voice is amazing. He did a sax solo that was incredible. I mean, the guy is so talented, so low ego, but such an amazing musician. I just have so much respect for that guy. And then he'll show up in the executive briefing center with some of the biggest customers in the world, like the NBA, ESPN, and he'll just lay down the winning architecture, but be ready to go, you know, the next night, just get on stage and play some of the most, you know, professionally produced music you've ever heard. The guy's amazing. You guys have an incredible asset in that guy. I view him as one of my best business partners, and I view him as a friend, and you guys are incredibly lucky to have a man like that.
Thank you, Jamie. We certainly realize we're lucky to have him. He drives so much of what we do. Yeah. All right. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for this. We value our partnership with your company immensely, and we wish you continued success.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Roy, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
You bet. You bet. Have a great one.
All right. Thanks.